Welcome to the Friends of Dan Music Podcast. I'm Dan Miles. You've been listening to the music of Dick Dale, who is, in fact, the undisputed king of the surf guitar, like the song says. Before we get him on the line, I want to give you some background on his life and career. He was born and raised in Massachusetts, then relocated to Southern California at the age of 17, when his father went to work for Howard Hughes in 1954. Though he's renowned for his innovative guitar technique, he's actually a multi-instrumentalist equally at home on the trumpet, piano, drums, harmonica, and saxophone. He's famous for his distinctive staccato picking technique, for using extremely thick strings, and most notably for playing right-handed guitars left-handed, leaving the strings in reverse order. In 1959, at the age of 22, he started releasing singles that showcased his unique guitar style. Then in 1962, he put out his first album, Surfer's Choice, which is an acknowledged classic in a genre that he himself single-handedly created. He continued to release albums throughout the 60s, then retired from the music business for a while, only to return in the 90s with a series of strong albums and a renewed public interest in his career after director Quentin Tarantino used his recording of Miserlou as a theme for the hit film Pulp Fiction. Despite battling serious health problems throughout his life, at 75, he still maintains a touring schedule that would wear out a musician a fraction of his age. I've really been looking forward to speaking with this legend of guitar, so let's get him on the line. Well, joining me on the phone from 29 Palms, California, is Dick Dale. Welcome.
Hey, yep, well, you could say 29 Palms, but actually the dividing line down the dirt road here is actually I'm in Wonder Valley. And they say, I wonder why I'm in the valley. But we're really 2,000 feet above Palm Springs, California, into the mountains, and it's just positively beautiful. So you can say Wonder Valley is realistically where it is, and 29 Palms is where my mail goes to, because we don't have a post office in Wonder Valley.
And speaking of beautiful places, I understand you just got back from Hawaii. Which island were you on?
Well, my hometown, and Hawaii was my home for many, many years, in Oahu, and I lived in Waikiki because I would be surfing every day from sun up to sundown, and till the moon rose. I'd only come out of the water one time to get a root beer float, and then I'd go back.
Well, I want to start by discussing three specific attributes of your guitar style, and the first one may surprise people. I understand one of the biggest influences on your guitar playing was actually a drummer, Gene Krupa. So how did his drumming affect your approach to the guitar?
Well, man, you did your homework, and that is very, very nice. So many people will say to me, do you play a guitar?
We were talking about that before you got me on the phone. Bad questions people ask.
But anyway, you've done your homework. Yes, Gene Krupa. Gene Krupa was the man who made drums the first solo instrument in the big band era. But he got his rhythms from listening to the natives, and he visited them, to the indigenous people throughout the world, and how they do their rhythms. And he found out that they do their rhythms, their application for the accentuation of the beat on the one, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and they'd stomp their lances, pound them into the ground the same way, bunka tinka bunka tinka bum. So he got his beats on the drum by listening to that, and whereas musicians, they do their counting on the one and the offbeat. Well, when he did it on the one, like the indigenous people did, he noticed that they mesmerized themselves, and they would fall to the ground, and they would be in a state of semi-consciousness, but yet they would do their fertility rite dances that way. And this is how they did everything. The Aborigine, I visited them, and I did a song for them, and I played on the didgeridoo, but they do the same thing, the same rhythm, ticka-ticka-taka-ticka-ta. And in the Shaolin Temple, they never allow you to touch the skin of a drum for 5 years till you can tongue what you're going to play. And it was exactly the same rhythm that Gene Krupa used. And then you learn to do it with your tongue. When you would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, you go taka tika ta, and then you can go tika tika taka tika 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 taka tika 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 taka tika tika ta, and you can hear the emphasis on the 1. So I took my guitar pick, and first I was using knives, my mother's cooking knives, and banging on sugar cans, and the rhythm of Gene Krupa, and then of course my father used to go nuts because we were in the days of the Depression. He goes, "You're scratching your mother's cans." So, but anyway, I would copy him, and then I went to the guitar. Well, first I had the ukulele, and that's another story. So, in fact, he even got me in their history of ukulele books, and I used a rhythm of Gene Krupa's drumming, and when I went to the guitar, I would pick the same way, up and down. I go ticka ticka taka ticka taka ticka ta. So when I would play like Mizzaloo, I go dun dun da 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 dun da da dun ticka ticka taka ticka ticka taka ticka ticka taka ticka ticka like that.
Yeah.
And when I'm playing surf beat or shake and stomp, I go dun da 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 dun ticka ticka taka ticka 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 taka ticka. It's like I'm playing drums, like Gene Krupa did. So that is the basis of the Dick Dale sound and rhythm.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that because it does sound like playing drums on the guitar, but it has a very profound meaning behind it. Now the second thing I wanted to talk about is the effect that the visceral experience of surfing had on your playing, because I understand while you were surfing from sunup till the moon, you were very attentive to the sounds around you, and you made a conscious effort to reproduce those sounds on your guitar.
That didn't come until at the very, very end. The sounds on my guitar came from, number one, Gene Krupa. The way he played on the drums, I played it on the guitar string, and that's the reason why I was playing on 60-gauge strings.
Yeah, that's thick.
People play on 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-gauge strings. My strings, when I was experimenting and we were building amplifiers and output transformers, I wanted to get a fat sound. And so I started off with 16, 18, 20. Those were unwound. And the wound strings were 39, 49, and 60 gauge. We call them telephone wires. But I would play them with a hard pick, stiff plastic. But that was my sound. Then what I did was I was raising animals from all over the world. I had, at the time, 2.5 acres of land, and I was raising lions and tigers and apes and hawks, falcons, eagles. There wasn't an animal that I did not have. Mountain lions, African lions, you name it. I had them all. Over 45 different species, but with 35 years of my life. I was raising them in a natural environment to protect them from the poachers from killing them. So now, when my African lion would see me coming back to the home, he would go like that because he wanted to eat. It usually happened every day at 5:30. And then when my mountain lions would see me, they would go wow like that. And then my baby elephant, well, I'd feed her by hand and put all the fruit and all the vegetables, everything, right down her throat, in her mouth with my hands. And she would see me, and she'd welcome me, and she'd scream, wow, like that. Well, I started imitating those sounds on my guitar. Yeah. So when I did the slides, I go, wow, and it sounded like a pterodactyl or a dinosaur or something. That was in my mind.
Yes.
And pterodactyl. And so, anyhow, the animals gave me my sound secondary. Now, on the third part is when I was surfing, then I would imitate the sounds of Mother Nature on the when I was in a tube, or I get swallowed up, or go over the falls and get churned up like a meat grinder, and go through my board and break it in half, things like that. All of those things would be, to me, very, very special. I would, imitate the roar of the ocean. But it was mainly the screams of my animals, and mainly the first original sound of the pulsation. And then what happened was critics where I turn around and there was a way I strummed, and I have to teach people separately when they ask me all about it. That's another story, and that's going to come in a video that I'm going to make eventually. I've been saying that for 20 years, but we're getting closer and closer. How I strum, the way I strum, to complement the vocal. But instead of strumming dang dick ding dick, I strum din da da din da, and it's the same thing like a conductor uses with his symphonic orchestra with a baton. 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, and I project that in the way that I play, so that you can feel it and hear it in every instrument that I play. So now, all of a sudden, these so-called historians would say, "Oh yeah, you get that reverb, wet, splashy sound. That's the surf sound." No, it ain't. It wasn't even there when we sold over 88,000 albums called Surfer's Choice, with me surfing on the cover. That would be like 4 million today. Everybody was saying, "Oh yeah, the reverb, the splashy sound." Well, guess what? There wasn't one reverb that wasn't made yet like that for a guitar. At that time, I was just playing on the heavy 60-gauge strings in a little hallway when I was recording Ms. Lou. And so it was the heavy staccato picking, and they thought it was a reverb. Well, there was no reverb on that album, Surfer's Choice, and Let's Go Trippin', and all those songs. Now, where did the reverb come from then? Well, it came from, I used to sing country songs, and I performed country music at Town Hall Party in Compton, California. People would, like Johnny Cash and Lefty Frizzell, Ernest Tubb, Tex Ritter. He gave me my first gun belt set that I used to do fast draw with, double gun belt set. And I always loved country. I was doing Hank Williams. So when I sang these songs while I'm playing what they called the surf beat, I called my country songs rockabilly, and came up with that name. And this is back in like 1956. And what happened was, I did not have a natural vibrato in my voice, so I needed something to sustain it. Well, one of the instruments that I play, and everything I play by ear. I never took a lesson. I went and I had a Hammond organ, and there was a switch, and it said reverb. And when I flicked the switch, it sustained the note. And I goes, wow, that's what I want. So I took the whole organ apart, because Leo and I were trying to figure out something to do that. And we created things like an echoplex, but they were echoes, and it didn't work, because Leo Fender didn't like stuff like that, but he did it for me. So now what happened was, I took the whole organ apart, and on the back, screwed to the back, was this tank, and it had a couple of springs in it. I took that off and took it to Leo, and I said, Leo, this is what I want. This is it. This has it. And it says Hammond organ reverb. And then what happened was we made a box, had 3 tubes, a 6K6, 12AT7, 7025, and we had a 12AX70, and we put the spring inside the box. And then I plugged in a Shure dynamic birdcage microphone, plugged it right into that box. And that's the same kind of mic that Frank Sinatra he would carry it with him everywhere he went. And I started singing, and I sounded like Dean Martin. It was just great. And so that was why the reverb was created. And then what I did was, a couple of weeks later, I said, you know what? Why don't I plug my guitar into that thing and sustain the notes so the guitar won't be so dry? I plugged the guitar in, and that's the history of how that all came to be. They were saying, his surfing sound. Well, my surfing sound was just me playing a regular guitar.
Yeah.
And you see, the reverb wasn't even born, and they keep using it a different name. They're going, oh, yeah, the wet, splashy sound of the surf.
Yeah.
That wasn't that. and I love to play Latino songs. And so when I played the Latino songs, I would put it on my switch on my guitar. We created a 5-position Dick Dale switch on the Stratocaster because I pioneered that. When he made it, he gave it to me. He made it in 1954, and I was pioneering it. He told me to beat it to death, and he used to have a favorite saying: whatever he made, and I would pioneer it for him, test it. He used to say, if it can withstand the barrage of punishment from Dick Dale, then it is fit for the human consumption.